Howdy, all you delicious people! I am here to review 976 Evil. Would you ever like demonic superpowers? Well, it's only a phone call away. We go out of our way to find a character known as Hoax, who is to stumble upon a 900 number through his cousin Spike. Hoax goes on to seemingly be a character that is to be an innocent guy who otherwise is to be called a creep and is to be bullied and is to be verbally and physically abused and hurt by people. And Hoax is to go on and find that this 900 number could be the answer to either his prayers or to just be a thing that is to go on and be a thing that he follows to the letter and finds out that it is to make him a much more transformable person that is to go on and end up having him at first with a girl that he is to spend time with, and then a much more rival to his bullied foes, and goes on to then feel equal to the man who has everything, who is to really, in my opinion, be Hoax's cousin Spike, because he had gone on and had the girl Susie before Hoax did, and then also Spike even had the 900 number before Hoax did, and we would go on to have eventually by the third act, Hoax and Spike becoming rivals, just because there's very few people left on the cast list. And then by the third act honestly gets a little bit weaker than I think the rest of the film, because it's like, well, whoever is just kind of left in the cast list has to just kind of be thrown into figuring out how they all will make it to Hoax's place, and we go on and kind of lose kind of Hoax, and it becomes much more of the demon kind of talking through Hoax at this point. And we really just have, by the end of this, to just kind of have also an ending that I'm gonna go on and kind of be like, okay, what the heck was that? Where Mark Dark kind of throws the picture on and says, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be my next project." It's like, no, like, not really. Uh, but anyways, so this movie goes on and gives me a story concept wise that I thoroughly liked and enjoyed, because it's the whole like victim getting even with his bullies, and then getting to a point where like the nerdy guy goes on and is to uh, be able to just be like, "Ooh, this is a person we can root for," even though he's getting very much more and more devilish and demonic and disfigured and what have you. So this movie is to obviously go on and remind me of a number of certain projects and a number of certain films, and I'll go and rattle them off now. This movie used to go on and kind of remind me of like 13 Sins, as well as also the Franco movie Nerve, where you go on and you call this certain phone number and they end up giving you these certain tasks or pranks to perform. And then once you do them, you end up getting money out of the transaction. Or also you get the victim bully movies that are to, of course, be similar, like Fade to Black, which that movie goes, instead of like demonic powers, the victim goes on and they end up cosplaying into certain personas that are to give them the confidence to wipe out their bullies. And the victim also has this weird fascination with Marilyn Monroe that I always have to go on and explain, because that's to be the more weird part of the film. That you have this guy that just is infatuated so much more with Marilyn Monroe that he probably beef jerks it to her weirdly. I don't know why, but he does. And that'll go on really weird people out, and I apologize, but I have to be honest. So I then will go on and talk about the movie Unhealer, a movie that is to give a guy superpowers to take out his bullies, but then also he goes on and he finds any weird adamant object and he eats it. And also, we have a character that harms himself to harm his bully, and that I think was a really interesting idea. But also just the way that the movie is all to be put together is just not really that good. But then, of course, we have the Stephen King movies, Carrie, the number of them, that, of course, are to have the girl who has the psychic abilities that go on to wipe out everyone in her school by the end of the film. Um, that that movie is to go on to be rather enjoyable, but to obviously have a number of things compared to this one as well. As far as the religious mother and the person getting bullied, and eventually having the person getting these powers to wipe out the people who are to laugh at her. So, this movie was to, of course, be directed by Robert Englund. I'm like, what better way to sell this film if nothing else? Sadly enough, this was the only thing that Robert had decided to have directed. But hey, like he had starred in so many other projects that I did enjoy also. So it's always nice to just go on and see that that Robert did just so many projects, and I just randomly found this one where he directed it instead of being actually involved in it. But or maybe he went on and I think he did the voice of the guy on the other part of the phone, and he at some point I think would go on and have a laugh that was similar to Freddy Krueger's at some point, but whatever. That's the only thing that I think I am to go on and think about within this movie. But anyways, so with that said, uh, this movie is to go on and be available on Tubi, Tubi. That is to be the most easiest and convenient way for you to say you can see this movie through an app that is to go on and not have any subscriptions of any kind. So check this movie out via there because I did really enjoy this film. I thought that this movie was a solid, good film, even though the third act ends up just kind of being having me just go on to like groan and moan about like like the third act isn't that good. Really, I wish that they could have gone on and had the whole bully thing kind of being a leading up thing to have that be much more of the end. But if anything, um, like we have to go into uh, the demon has to be the bad guy by the end of this film. But anyways, so this movie will also be available on apps that I've been using for quite a bit of time, but you would go on and you would need a Google Play Store or a mobile device of some kind, which of course would be Zelifonic, Zelivonic, or Moopzy, Moopzzi. It is also kind of really interesting throughout this entire movie. They have a lot of devil-esque like references within this movie. I believe the theater was to have the sign that says Diablo on it, and also there is to be the deviled eggs, and just a number of just like Mark Dark's hairs have that kind of horn curve to it, and just a number of other things that are to go on and just be like, okay, there is to be some references of hell and devil and so on and so forth throughout this movie, and it was to be something that was to not to be so much in your face, uh, but it's also to just kind of be these fun little Easter egg of things that I did enjoy. So, solid, good film. I really did enjoy it at the end of the day. Definitely thumbs up this movie because I really did like it. So, now let's go on and let's just say here it seems that I've gotten kind of everything that I wanted to talk about out of the way for this film. I am really to be very overwhelmed and very appreciative by people who are continuing to just like these videos because I didn't think that any of my videos would end up being worth that, or quite honestly, for a lot of times when there would just be these longevous amount of gaps where people wouldn't comment on stuff either. I would just be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, like I guess this video just didn't really deserve that. But it is kind of nice that I'm continuing to see those kinds of things happening. And so I'm to just be grateful for people that take the time and do those things. I've but even like just simply viewing a thing, it does really help out the channel. And I really do. I really feel great that people are doing that. I'm trying not to say the same things I've always said in every single video and whatever, because I'm sure eventually people will go on and get annoyed that I'm repeating myself so often. But anyways, so things that I will hope to go on and review in the future. I'm going to try to change up what I've gone on and said in a number of other videos for kind of newer projects that I'm thinking about doing. Uh, I am honestly very tempted by watching this certain specific film, but I know that it may not actually be dubbed in English. Man, that is going to be a problem, right? Um, I am honestly so very tempted about watching a movie called Fatal Frame because I'd gone on and seen some of the video games, and I'm honestly very tempted to just watch the film, even though I do realize that it's not dubbed in English. But I'm just like I want to come up with a reason to just justify watching that film. I don't care if it's going to be a thing that no one's going to want to see that project, or I don't think it's going to be popular on YouTube. But I just want to check out that project just to see if it's worth um, me going on and watching a film that is to be subtitled out. Because I'd gone on and seen Pan's Labyrinth, and I was like, I don't know if I really like. I don't really remember very well if it was something that was really worth it, but I checked it out anyways. And every once in a while, I want to go on and do projects that aren't exactly to be perfectly in English either, because I just want to see a foreign film that, yeah, if I have to read, then I have to read. Because I've done that with like Japanese Spider-Man, and I've done that with a number of other projects at some point that you've probably stumbled upon randomly, because eventually I haven't reviewed things enough. But anyways, there's also other projects that I probably stated in a number of other reviews, like Brood or like Ghoulies, and uh, but there is also going to be a project that I'm kind of fascinated by, even though I otherwise think that no one will probably care about it. There's a film that has Jeff Bridges, uh, Kiefer Sutherland, and Sandra Bullock in it called The Vanishing, and I don't know if that movie is going to be all worthwhile for me to check out, but like there's something just about the trailer that I saw that I was like, maybe there's something here. Also, it seems that I think a lot of people like these kind of just disappearance movies where people are trying to investigate to understand why it all happened. And that could be the reason for me to want to check out a film like this. But either way, that could be possibly a future review that I'll go on and do. I don't think that it's any kind of horror thing, but regardless, like, it might be a project that I will possibly check out. I'm trying much more to stick into the horror genre of things, and there could be a lot of fascinating stuff that I will check out in the future that will still tie into some horror projects. There's a lot of beta titles that I hope to put my best foot forward on, to hope that these could be some really interesting pieces. I am consistently every day doing tons and tons of research to just try to find um, a much more interesting bit of horror film, or something that will speak to me specifically and just be like, oh heck yeah, this is definitely going to be a thing that uh, comes to my interest specifically. Like I would go on and to have also have loved like the comic book character Dial H for Hero. That's what got me so enticed into a movie like this, is because I liked that character and was so consumed by a person who is to uh, do a whole phone call thing, and then eventually get these superpowers in a way. So also with the whole demonic thing, I was like, oh, okay, like it's been such a long time since doing stuff like My Demon Lover and things like that, that I wanted to go on and do something similar to that, and this is to be like perfectly in my wheelhouse. It kind of hit all the bells and whistles of everything that I ever wanted in a film. So this movie was great. So let's go on and let's get into full on spoilers and break down scene for scene everything that goes through into this movie and first through third acts and what have yous. So with that said, I think it's about that time to push on into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. Even though I really did like this film, I'm curious what the sequel could end up being, but then again, I had gone on to realize that the sequel is to focus on a character known as Spike and has Bridget Nielsen in it. So I'm like, I don't know if the sequel is actually going to be as good as this first one, or if the sequel has the same similar idea of the first one. And if it's not, then why bother? Because that's kind of what I'm hoping for is for the films both 1 and 2 to have the same kind of idea to it because of how much I enjoyed this movie and how I don't want the sequel to just ruin the first one for me either. But anyways, so I may somewhere down the road recheck out the sequel to this because I might just be tempted enough. There probably should have at some point been certain movies that I should have went into the sequels of, but I just never bothered. Because once I was to go on and find out, oh, no one really cares about this one, I just kind of left it the way it was, and I never went into the sequels or whichever. But also, like, Waxwork was a movie that I probably should have went into the sequel of, but I just never did. But it seems that people could quite possibly have some interest to Waxwork, so maybe I'll check into the sequel of that. But anyways, let's go on and let's get into the spoilers because I've said that more than often enough that I should push into that. So let's pause here. Let's whip that out. All right, spoilers. So I also want to mention that it seems that there's quite often a number of people that are going on and liking these YouTube videos, either through the fitness shorts or even the reviews. And really, I am to go on and really be very much just grateful that people are going on and doing said things because it really does go on and really is to because people are taking that effort. People are going on and they're deciding that they enjoyed the video or that um, they want to show their positivity in some way or another. Or also, some people may just need to go on and just like a video because they want to check out the movie and or show themselves. And regardless, like that does help you, the viewer, out. And that's all that I ever wanted to really happen is to, in some way, hope that any number of these reviews can help out another person instead of just helping out myself. To just hoping that eventually this will become at some point successful, uh, if it ever really does go on and actually do that. But if anything, with looking about how like um, the people that we have on this channel, the number of views that miraculously some of these videos get, not every one of them, but if anything, like all of this stuff is just like I'm just very happy that all of this stuff is just happening regardless of what exact number or what, because not everyone is to be numbers, they're all to be people. So thank you for going on and being that person that goes on and does anything for this channel, because I do appreciate it. But anyways, let's go into the beginning of this because I've been blabbing on for 20 minutes. I'm sure a lot of people are like, just get to the rest of the review. So let's get into the beginning of this. So there are going to be certain characters that don't actually have a name in this film. Kind of like the early guy on here, the guy in the suit. That I will just go on and say that he's victim number 1, or he'll be male victim in suit, or I'll just say suit guy because I have no idea what his name is. There's also a redheaded woman that I had gone on to just see that her name was just female victim in this movie. So I'm like, what am I going to say if her name is? So logically, I think I'm just going to go in the very beginning of this with male victim, the first guy we see, and then female victim is going to be the later character. It's going to be weird to have to say that every time of what they actually do. But anyways, so we make our way into this first character that is running around town, and we have these whispers of male 1 and male 2. It's for you. Come to us. And all these enticing things. This very first victim goes on to eventually find this car phone that is glowing red. And I was like, oh, wow, this is kind of a cool visual to kind of start us out in this film. But then we have our victim that continues to hear this ringing going on, to quite possibly have us assume that maybe this victim is to be the only one hearing this, but regardless, it is to be the endless hearing of every phone that is to ever be going on within their radius. Even to the point to where when the person does pick up the phone and this person is going on and talking to said victim, we'll find that even the phone call is to uh, go to a certain response. That is to say that they aren't actually calling anybody. It's all in to be within their heads. So the first victim goes on and finds this phone booth that is ringing with this phone. We have the victim that goes on and answers said phone call, and eventually, shortly thereafter, the phone booth is to explode and thrust the victim within out of it, causing the first death of this movie. So the next thing we go on to see is the Diablo Theater, and we have a continuous terror marathon, all seats $1.99. Wow, what a price. So we end up having this projector that is to be rolling here, and we have this poker game going on. Spike with all these guys who eventually will be the bullies of the film. We have Marcus in the red tank top here. We have Jeff, who is in the kind of more darkened tank top. We have Rags, who has kind of like the do rag upon his head and the longer hair, and then we have Airhead, who has kind of the more of the kind of more like I'll say that he has a kind of a more kind of a spiked hair, kind of like mine, similar, but like his is to kind of be more of a kind of a flat top in a way. Uh, but if anyways, so we have this poker game going on, and it seems that Spike is going to have to be up for needing to put some money in, uh, because Spike is having the possibility of maybe winning this game. And Marcus goes on to tell Spike, hey man, if you don't have the money, how about you just put up your pink slip for your motorcycle, and that'll be uh, the way of which that if you lose, then you'll just give me your bike. So Spike goes on. It's like, okay, I'll give into that because Spike thinks that he has a really good hand here, but unfortunately, the way things play out is that actually Spike loses his hand. So we have Marcus that goes on to tell Spike, hey, bring your pink slip by my office tomorrow. Probably his office would just be the bathroom at the school. But Spike goes on and tells Marcus, hey, I'll come up with the cash tomorrow. Yeah, I'm sure he will. Just come out of the cash right out of where? Like a rabbit out of a hat? And so we have Spike that goes on and he makes his way to his cousin's home. And we have plastic that is to seemingly be all over the furniture, which it really is to go on and be a very long time since I've gone on to see anybody who's to ever have plastic over their furniture. But maybe someone is to go on and actually have plastic over their furniture to this day. Uh, but I guess that is one way to kind of keep things clean, especially if you have like a lot of pets in your home also. So we have Hoax here who is going on. He's reading, I believe, some comic book, and he's eating some candy bar. We have Aunt Lucy who is going on and telling Hoax they should not be going on and eating any candy bar, and then goes on and sees Hoax and it's like, oh yeah, I see some smush upon your face, so she wipes it off, kind of being the traditional mother here. So we would go on to have Spike making his way uh, to his place, his little guest house. That kind of looks also like a uh, like I think it was probably something that was kind of converted into a guest house because at first it kind of looks like uh, a thing that they probably just used for like a tool area and then converted it into a guest house. So as Spike makes his way into his room, he all of a sudden ends up getting this chute that has this note come down, and we have a note coming from Hoax that says, "Hi, Spike." And so Spike looks out the window, and Hoax is like, "Hey," like a little goober, like, so hilarious. The very beginning of this, Hoax is like, "Ha!" But anyways, so Spike is going on and thumbing his way through this magazine, and he stumbles upon this little coupon of a thing that ends up stating, for your horoscope, dial 976 eval. So Spike ends up going on to decide to call this phone number, and he ends up going on to get his horoscope. So there is to be a woman that is to be the operator that kind of is to kind of be this intro, and then after that, we have a man that comes on, like, "Welcome to the caverns of the unknown. I am the master of the dark." And then they end up having to interrupt the whole thing and be like, "November 28, 1988," because this is to be just like uh, a kind of a machine that goes on and does this, and they have to keep going on and kind of saying what the date is because it's a horror scope thing. So the man comes on and says, "Financial debts linger, but not for long. You have the urge to take risks, but or don't be afraid." Um, your price lies only a short distance away. Claim it. So we would have Spike that realizes that he can go on and make his way into the house because Lucy is to have this certain place where she kind of keeps this money. So Spike goes on to make his way into the kitchen to drink some milk and starts rummaging through the cupboards and then finds this little fish thing where he can take money out of. And then all of a sudden, Lucy finds him and is to say that he's stealing. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not steal. Uh, and also kind of Hoax is kind of popping in, like, hey, what's going on? So we of course have Lucy that mentions that she's gonna get the strap out because she always says that. It seems that she is to have that be the one thing that could be the scare factor for either Hoax or either Spike here. So here we would come to find that I guess Spike's family is, I guess, dead, or his sister, his mother is to go on and be dead, and I guess that was like Spike's only family, it seems. Um, because Lucy goes on and says, "That's where my sister, God rest her soul." So immediately that we realize that Spike doesn't have any other family besides Lucy and besides Hoax here. But anyways, uh, but Lucy is to go on and say that considering uh, Spike's mother didn't go on and discipline Spike, like that's the reason why he always acts up the way he does. And plus also like Lucy mentions how like Spike has a motorcycle and that he's failing in school, and so we get to find out who exactly Spike is, and we're thinking that he in some ways is to be like, oh, maybe he's the bad guy of this story. But then the further and further we go into this film, we realize that eventually he can be the hero of this story. um Technically, uh once Spike goes on and he starts to help out his cousin Hoax, and he ends up going on to uh, eventually be the rival to Hoax that is killing people. So yeah. So, anyways, uh, there's a further argument of the whole stealing thing, and that Lucy is to say that Spike should not go on and get any kind of claim to any money until he's 21 years of old, and so then I guess Lucy can kind of do whatever she wants with what is to be uh, possibly inherited by Spike because of his dead mother. Anyways, so the further and further this argument leads outside, and Lucy tells Spike that at some point she hopes that Spike will change and that there's still time to repent. And as Lucy is to thrust Spike into her arms, all of a sudden there is to be an alarming amount of things falling from the sky. We would all of a sudden go on to find that it's raining fish from the sky, and that all of a sudden there's these massive amount of fish that are all just flinging down. At some point, Palmer, the private eye, would say that whenever it is to go on and be raining fish, it is to be a warning from God. Whatever that means, I don't know. I'm not very much that much of a religious person to know um, the connection of any of that. But anyways, uh, as the fish continue to fall upon the sky onto the ground, and is even either hitting Hoax, Lucy, or Spike, we would go on to find that bizarrely, since this occurrence is to happen, oddly enough, this family is to come into some kind of wealth because of that. I don't quite understand why that all of a sudden is to be the thing where uh, they will become much more in fortune when they have fish falling from the sky. Uh, like, are they going to sell that fish and get a lot of money? I don't know. That didn't quite make sense in my brain of why all of a sudden when fish are falling from the sky that these people will all of a sudden have all the money to uh, well be able to pay their debts and so on and so forth throughout this film. But I think that's what's kind of to be nodded to here in this film. So we would have Spike that goes on, and he ends up getting uh, his horoscope said to him, and a man comes through and says, "When it rains, it pours. You're not in debt anymore." We have another note that comes shooting out to Spike, and so Spike reads it. Uh, Hoax ends up saying through a note, "Nice trick. How did you do it, Hoax?" Not quite sure exactly what that means. Like, does Hoax immediately assume that Chris had something to do with the fish flying from the sky? Uh, but if so, it's like, man, like, you would think Chris would not be the guy who is to be made with with magical illusion like money of that scale. Uh, but anyways, so here's where we have Private Inspector Palmer, who is to go on and make his way to Lucy's home, claiming that he is to be from some modern miracle magazine, and he wants to talk to Lucy about her miraculous occurrence of the fish falling from the sky. And so we now make our way to Hoax uh, being thrusted in a toilet at school, of course, being bullied again by a number of people uh, who are thrusting him down this toilet. So Marcus is going on uh, and having Airhead kind of choke out this young lad. And so Marcus is going on and telling this little kid, "Hey, you can eat lunch every other day, but just not today." So the little lad leaves, and then we, of course, go on and have Spike that makes his way to the bathroom. Spike is there to go on and pay up his debt instead of giving Marcus the pink slip. And then Spike goes further on to stop having these guys bully his cousin and protects him. And Hoax even says, after Spike beats all these guys up, it's like, "Hey, we could have taken them, like you and me. We could have been equal to them, and we could have taken them." And Spike is like, "Yeah, whatever. Like, I just wanted to get out of there." So, because Hoax says, like, "Well, hey, why'd you leave? We could have taken those guys. We're a team, Spike." And so Spike goes on and tells Hoax, it's like, "Hey, you don't tell anybody about last night, about the whole fish thing." Uh, and so Hoax says, like, "Well, I told Marcus about it just so that way he could probably leave me alone." And Hoax is to possibly think that because of that happening, that they were to have been blessed by the Lord, because that's what his mother told him. And in that Hoax thought it was fair to warn those guys about that blessing. And so Spike goes on and tells him, it's like, "Well, hey, like, uh, well, look, unless the Lord is going to go uh, to head with you, then you better stay out of there if you, unless you can handle it yourself." Thought that was kind of a good joke. But anyways, so we have Lucy that is going on and talking to Palmer here, this detective, and kind of re-explaining what had happened, uh, the showering of fish, and we have both Spike and we have both Susie, and they're over by his bike. It seems that the two of them are to have so much of a good rapport between one another that they're going to go on and have a date tonight. So here is where Hoax comes on in with his goofy bike and his goofy helmet. Anything else goofy, we'll have to just notch down the top 10 list. But anything, we have Hoax making his way to Spike, saying that now his muffler sounds very much more similar to Spike's. Sorry, but your bike isn't gonna end up looking a lot more attractive compared to Spike's. I'm sorry, just because of the muffler sounding quite like his. But if anything, yeah, that's. But Hoax, hey man, you're gonna be freaking eventually at some point in this movie looking way cooler when you get your demonic powers. So I think things are gonna even out at some point. So Hoax goes on and says that he had adjusted his muffler uh, in metal shop or workshop or whatever the one crafting uh, school classes are. So Spike turns to Hoax and says, "Hey, I'll talk to you later." And Susie's like, "Well, hey, who is that guy?" And Hoax starts going on about them taking a trip with their bikes this summer, and that maybe Hoax could go on and think that this girl will have another girl that Hoax can go along with, and they'll go like kind of double dating on a bike road trip. And we have Spike that is telling like Susie, it's like, "Hey, I'm sorry about this guy." So we have Spike to tell Susie, "Hey, I'll see you at 7." and Susie like, "Oh, okay, I'll be there." Spike rides off, he looks all cool and everything, and then Hoax goes on and he is like, "Well, see you later, doll." And then he goes off on his bike. And immediately he freaking crash lands and freaking like I'm like, oh man, like this very much reminds me of like Seth Green in the Italian Job where he has that really flashy bike and then he starts driving it and freaking and then Jason Statham's character has to help him get his bike up and everything. Yeah, that was kind of just like kind of the same kind of scene here. So now we have QN female victim, a girl with red hair and high heels, making her way to go on and to look at this horoscope 976 number and taking a lighter to it as she is to light her cigarette. We have at a point where this redheaded girl is to find uh, this telephone out and about while she was making her way through the town, and the man on the other line tells this redheaded victim, "I thought we had a deal. I told you," or she said, "I told you no. A deal is a deal. Leave me alone, please, please. Please play. Please pay for your call now." This is the operator. So we go on to have female victim after hanging up that phone call. She makes her way through the streets of Calcutta or wherever this town is, and we have at a point where there is this display window, and this display window has all of these different kinds of phones. We have this duck phone, we have this fish phone, we have all these kinds of phones. And at one point, as the woman is to make her way into looking at this phone display, all of a sudden the glass of this phone display, because of the noise of all of these phones, um, breaks the entire display, and all the glass comes flying at this woman. And the next thing we see is this woman on the ground, and glass of shards of everything are all over her body, and she's effing dead. She's killed, and her high heel is to go on and be over by her head. I don't know if this was the high heel phone or if this was the high heel um, that she had on her, because both of them are red. So we have the private investigator. He goes on and he's making his way at this diner, and nearby is to also go on and be Spike. Spike goes on to make his way to a guy named Virgil, who's to be this parts shop. So both Spike and Verge are talking about how rare this part is, and at some point Spike is to be interested in these gloves, these leather gloves. Like, hey, what are the price of these leather gloves? And Virgil states that it's $20. So I guess we have to assume that probably Spike just had enough to cover the money for the debt, but not enough to pay for these leather gloves. What happened to the wealthy, or the thing of the fish that were to go on and be so prominent? I guess, man, did that fade so quickly, right? So I guess he wasn't blessed enough to get more money to be able to pay for a $20 thing of gloves. So Spike goes on and he puts the gloves back, and he'll say, "Hey," he'll say to Virgil, "Hey, I'll wait outside." And so Virgil goes on and he sits by his bike, and all of a sudden this phone call rings. Or no, wait. So Spike goes on and he is to again call the horoscope, and we end up doing the 666 thing, and Spike ends up going on to getting another horoscope. Welcome to the Cavern of the Unknown. I am the Master of the Dark, the guide to your destiny on November 29th, 1988. A real man has the nerves to take what he deserves. So, Spike is to need to be enticed to steal these gloves. And if he doesn't go on and do that, there might be some repercussions for that. So, Spike goes on and makes his way back into the shop, ever so tempted to steal the gloves that are to be $20. So Spike goes on and is to at first take the gloves and put it away, but then he's like, no. So Spike goes on, puts the glove back on the rack, and then leaves and goes back outside. All of a sudden, Spike is to then. Here's where we get the phone call. I got a little confused here. The telephone starts ringing. Spike goes to it, and Spike says, "Hello?" The man on the other end of the line says, or the man on the other end of the line goes on and says, "A real man has the nerves to take what he deserves." And so we, of course, have Spike who's like, "What is this bullshit?" Like, a real man has a nerve. Did you hear what I said? And Spike is like, F you, F you. So the woman comes back on your horoscope of November 29th, 1988. Look both ways before crossing the street. You! So, if someone is going to go on and tell you probably look both ways before you cross the street, you should probably do that. Especially if something has come true the last time you've talked to these people. So, Spike goes on and he crosses the street, and he has dropped a number of change onto the ground. There is all of a sudden this car that is to come out of nowhere and start to be driving to seemingly go on and want to run over Spike here. Miraculously, at the same time, we would have Palmer, the private investigator, who has gone on to take his time to have watched Spike this whole entire time, is noticing that Spike is in jeopardy. Palmer goes on and runs to Spike, pushes him over to where both Palmer and Spike are to be both protected onto the sidewalk, and both of them are miraculously unscathed. The car drives off, and so Spike turns to Palmer and says, "Thanks, I owe you one." So when is he gonna go on and have that debt be paid? Probably never in this film. But anyways, so both Spike and Palmer make their way to the restaurant, and the two of them order, and of course, one of the orders is deviled eggs. Continuing on with the joke. So we have Palmer that tells Spike that he had talked to his aunt today. How exactly did he know that this was the same exact guy? But I guess it's just like, well, maybe there was pictures hung at some point in the house. I'm not quite sure. Palmer goes on and says to Spike, "Hey, fish don't fall from the sky every night, right?" It's kind of like Dogma, where we would go on to have Jay and Silent Bob, where Jay goes on and says, like, "Well, hey, beautiful naked women don't fall from out of the sky, you know," and and like Chris Tucker just falls from the sky, uh, and then he makes the beautiful naked women don't fall out of the sky, and then that didn't happen. But if anything, yeah, like he goes out of like, "Hey, naked people don't fall out of the sky," you know, and then Chris Rock falls. Anyways, I ruined the joke. Anyways, moving on. And then the further that Spike just kind of gives Palmer nothing, it's like, well, you're not going to make this easy for me, are you? It's like, what makes you immediately think that it's going to be Spike who has anything to do with what's going on right now? It could all just be weird coincidence. But anyways, we coincidentally finally have that date at 7 o'clock to be had between both Chris and both both Spike and both Susie here. I don't know why I have bizarrely in my mind somebody's named Chris in this movie because that's what keeps popping into my brain. So I apologize if any time I'm to say Chris when there is no Chris in this film. But anyways, we have Spike, we have Susie. They're on the motorcycle. They're driving off, and both of them are getting hot and heavy in Spike's room. We have Hoax, who's using his telescope to be able to be peeping on what exactly Spike is going on and doing, even to the point where Hoax is to go on and delivering Spike a little bit of a note, which I can't exactly read what exactly it says. And Susie ends up getting uncomfortable that it seems that she realizes that Hoax is watching in on them getting intimate or thrusting, as we are to go on and vaguely, creatively figure out a way around what is actually going on here. So Susie goes on and calls Hoax a bit of a creep, and what kind of sicko is he? And we have Spike that says, "Yeah, you should meet his mother." So Susie goes on and hands Spike her panties, and Spike ends up saying to Susie, "It's like, well, why did you give me these for?" And Susie's like, "Well, maybe there's going to be a reason that I'm going to come back then." And Spike is like, "Well, you don't really need a reason to come back here." But Susie's like, "Well, hey, like I'm not going to leave empty-handed either. I'm going to go on and I'm going to put on uh, your underwear and I'm going to show them off to you." So Hoax is going on, and after both Spike and Susie leave because they're going to make their way to a late night feature, we have Hoax that leaves his telescope to make his way into Spike's place to find Susie's underwear, to take a big old whiff of it, and then probably put it into his own pocket because he is probably much more wanted, much more so than Spike does. Because Spike has Susie. So Spike and Susie make their way to the theater, and I think Spike's only reason for going to this movie theater is to actually get into this poker game. He doesn't really care about this film, or even care probably that he's going on this date with Susie, and Susie will go on and much more so be upset about that and lash out at Spike because of it. And yeah, makes a lot of sense. It's like you have a good looking woman like this, and you're gonna just blow that all off for a poker game just so you can win some money. Come on, man. You're blowing it. You're blowing it. She probably blew you earlier, but you're blowing it now. Anyways, we have Airhead who is thrusting his face in the mirror like and like, hey man, poker. And so Spike is like, oh yeah, yeah. So Spike tells Susie, hey, like, keep my seat warm. Like, I'll be there in a minute. And that minute will eventually end up being a lot more than that because Spike will continue to win in this poker game and be doing well. So we go on to have Hoax, who rifles through Spike's stuff, and is to find, of course, the 976 evil number and decide upon himself to call said phone number. So Spike makes his way in to the game here as we start to find that there are more people a part of this gang than there were before. There is this girl that is to seemingly be involved in this gang that she doesn't actually have a name. I think she's just called Girl in the Gang or whatever in the credits. So it's like, oh, she doesn't legitimately have a name, but oh well. So uh, they end up, I think, calling at some point Spike Leonard. So I'm not quite sure if that is to actually be Spike's name and his nickname is to actually just be Spike. Uh, but either way, uh, we have Rags who goes on and asks Spike if he brought his pink slip again. uh, because he thinks, or they think that he's going to lose again. But if anything, he's at such a hot streak that he's going to beat them all for everything that they've ever taken them from. And so he's just so enticed to just continue playing. So Hoax goes on and makes his way to see his spider that he has in uh, this little cage thing, and that'll be foreshadowing to what happens between both Hoax technically and as also with Susie and her fear and what eventually Hoax will go on uh, and scare her to death with, I guess, will end up being what goes on through a later portion of this film at some point. So Hoax goes on, he calls the 900 number and ends up getting the woman out of the darkness and into the light comes your horoscope of this dark and stormy night. And Hoax is like, oh brother, like come on. So he dials the 666. So we get the man on the line. Welcome to the cavern of the unknown. You know, we get this shtick over and over and over again. So I am the master of the dark, the guide to your destiny. And then November 29th, 1988. Your problems not nearly as bad as it seems. Just take in a late show and meet the girl of your dreams. So Hoax is going on like, okay, I'll go to a movie and see what happens. So he does. So we have the production going on and showing the movie as we would go on to have Spike still so focused on this game. We even have the point where Spike is to need to put his ante in so that way people can still expect that he's going back into the game. But Spike will end up getting grabbed by Susie because, of course, she's upset. And Susie ends up saying, "Hey, I'm going home." uh, and Spike even goes on further and says, "Hey, here's a cab for $20." And Susie's like, "Really?" Like, wow. Uh, so I guess a little wham bam thank you ma'am, or forget about me ma'am, because like, yeah, I guess since you're on a roll. Anyways, so Spike is fighting between still playing the game and wanting to just talk to Susie and try uh to figure out some way to just kind of be either apologetic or just to like just hear her out. So Spike ends up telling Susie, "Hey, what's the matter? What do you think the matter is, you douche?" So Susie ends up saying, "You got me figured out all wrong, Spike. I'm not gonna sit downstairs all night while you play with the boys." And Spike is like, "Well, hey, you gotta understand, I'm winning." She doesn't give a fuck. I'm winning. What are you, Charlie Sheen? Uh, I'm taking back every penny I've ever lost from those guys. Uh, it's like, I'm sorry, some date this turned out to be. And she's like, who said anything about a date? It's like, I did. You think you're so cute. So here is where, like, since Spike goes back and he goes back and does the card thing and he continues to win and takes all the guys for everything they're worth. And I guess that could be the wealth that he eventually so desires. We have Susie that makes her way out of the theater and bumps into Hoax. Hoax ends up scaring Susie, and it's like, yeah, of course he does. And Hoax is like, I scared you? And Susie's like, well, yeah, you're sneaking around and all kinds of stuff. So Hoax is like, well, I'm sorry. And so Susie's like, well, yeah, you're Spike's cousin, right? Because, like, she doesn't remember him whatsoever. And he's like, well, yeah, of course, that's me. I'm Spike's cousin, because nobody really knows who I am. And no one really cares. Uh, she's like, well, do you have a name? And he says, yeah, Hoax. Hoax Wilmont. Spike's cousin, yeah. uh, Susie goes on and says she wants nothing more to do with Spike, and if anything, she's actually mad right now, and when she's mad, uh, she wants to eat. So I'm like, yeah, Susie. Go on, Susie, and just have that pizza. Yeah. So the two of them are sharing a pizza. We have a certain point. Hoax is to actually be interested in putting money into this little jukebox that they have on the table, but he realizes he doesn't have any money on him. So how did he go on and make his way to the theater and get a ticket? Or did he get a ticket, or did he just go to the movie theater? I guess he didn't really have any money on him, so I'm just trying to figure this out. So maybe he just had just enough money just for a movie ticket. I'm trying to put the dots together here. Uh, or maybe he just coincidentally just came to the movie theater and popped, there she was. Anyways, so Susie goes on and gives Hoax even more money than what he thought that she would be giving him. And so he goes on and puts money into the jukebox. And the way that the next thing we see, like Susie just like shoves uh, pizza into Hoax's mouth, and he's like, so we continue to see Marcus and Spike. They're playing poker here. We just kind of continue to see this going on. we have Susie that is talking to Hoax about her Catholic school days and how she was actually kicked out of it. And Hoax is kind of looking at the pictures, like, all right, well, like, neat. And she's like, well, yeah, it was pretty wild back then. Like, were you? Cool. So, uh, so it seems that Hoax is actually paying attention to what she's saying and actually just listening to her. And also Hoax goes on and tells Susie this joke about this farmer that goes out to the barn, and the cow ends up going on and saying like, well, hey, I'd know those fingers anywhere. And then Susie like spits out her drink and starts laughing. So here's finally where Spike goes on and takes all the guys for all their money and then decides to leave. So Susie goes on and she has a cigarette, and Hoax says, yeah, I don't smoke. My mother would never allow it. And coincidentally, there ends up becoming a spider that makes its way onto the table. Hoax goes on and realizes that it's a daddy longlegs, and instead of crushing it or killing it, because Hoax is to own a spider himself, he instead is to want to take the spider and let it go outside so it can roam free. As we come to find out that Susie is really afraid of spiders, even to the point to where she's jumping on to the seat and just like, oh, like get it away. And so we have Hoax that makes his way to the door and lets the spider be free. And the bullies, of course, make their way. This gang here ends up crushing the spider, making their way into the diner because of course Spike had gone on to kind of wipe them out for their money. They of course are going to humiliate Hoax here to just kind of get even to feel better about themselves, I guess. So we have Susie that says at one point, "Hey, leave him alone. Why don't you guys just leave him alone?" And as they're bullying him and they're torturing him and they're just slopping pizza on his face and throwing him onto the ground. We have at one point where they make their way through his pockets and find Susie's panties within Hoax's pants pockets, and that ends up having Susie then turn against Hoax and say like, "I thought you were different," and she goes on to then reject Hoax, and yeah, that really sucked. That really sucked because, like, man, if you just didn't have those panties on you, this girl would have gone on and probably ended up being yours, but you just did that one little f up. It's like, yeah, like that's the whole thing where you go on and like you always kind of second guess like what you do while you're dating somebody, like because you can just say one little thing that you just completely regret because maybe it's just taken the wrong way, and like that heavily just derails just everything that you were just like, we had a really amazing time, but he just said this one little just joke that was just like just not good and just effed everything up. Because eventually everyone like the further and further that you just have to continue to talk or say something, like you realize you're like, I got nothing, and then you're just gonna be like a foot mouth disease. But anyways, uh but pushing on. So we have Marcus that goes on to ask Hoax how exactly he had gotten that girl's underwear. Really? You of all people? Uh but also he calls him an effing perv anyways. So they go on and they take Hoax and they thrust him into this dumpster, and the dumpster is upside down. So at some point, Hoax finally does go on and get out of the dumpster, and I'm like, oh, this is such a low point in this movie. And Hoax goes on and he calls that 900 number. And then we have the man on the phone. Don't worry about others who damage your pride. They soon, they'll soon regret it when she's by your side. This also, like, if you kind of think about it, it kind of feels like Jumanji in a way. Because they have that kind of weird riddle of a thing also. But I kind of like the rhyming scheme here because it feels like a lot of effort is being put into this. I am the truth, the others tell lies. Call me back later to capture your prize. So now we have Susie that has made her way back home, and the pizza wasn't enough, and she's looking at this TV dinner. And in all honesty, this kind of reminded me of how I would go on and I would have like lean cuisines and stuff like that much lately or much recently. So just kind of seeing Susie do this, I'm like, what could go wrong with my lean cuisines? So Susie goes on and she's cooking what I guess could be her dinner. And so here's where we have Hoax who ends up getting the phone call. Uh, Small circle of salt and star within. Adding one insect will punish her sin. Your juice of my weed will implant my seed and make you or make you one of my kin. Yeah, we have devil's root that ends up getting put in here. So while we go on, we have Susie, who is not only lighting, I think, another cigarette, but then she's also lighting her oven. We have Hoax, who's making uh, a panorama of whatever the ritual kind of Star of David with all these candles around him. And he has the spider, and he has all this stuff prepared. He twists the root into the juice, and we then have the spider there. So I want to see Panorama or Panera, whatever the weird sigil is that they always do in all those devil rituals. I know exactly what that was called. I know it starts with a P. But yeah. So the sigil. Anyways, so we have the man who's on the phone call, and it's like Hoax knows tricks. Join us, Hoax. Join us, Hoax. Yeah, da da da. So Susie is going on, and she's getting her TV dinner on the table, and she's getting a soda or a pop, whatever you want to, the beverage of choice of some kind of cola of some kind, and ketchup for her TV dinner. The one thing that I saw here is that she has like a drawer of like just silverware or forks and it's like just scattered all over the goddamn place. Like maybe that's a thing for people. Like we have one of those things where you like perfectly sort the silverware. So luckily we have one of those. But maybe people may have just a drawer where it's just all over the place. Like for me, I would just be concerned that I would just be like, okay, I'm gonna poke myself with something if I have a drawer like that. But again, like it kind of depends on how organized people really want to be. I also have like at our house we have like a knife drawer where we just have just a bunch of knives just scattered all over the place, and another drawer we have just a bunch of like spoons for cooking stuff. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of scattered all over the place. That's not as well organized, but regardless, either way, organized or not, whatever, it could kind of go and be compared to any number of those things. But so here's where Susie goes on and she pokes open her aluminum foil meal of some kind, TV dinner looks like. And we start to have the spider that's having one leg just kind of poke out. Looks just like, yeah. But yeah, it's kind of cool here. So finally, Susie goes on and reveals the aluminum foil, and spiders come out of the woodwork everywhere. Susie goes on and she is to use, I believe, some bug spray to just start to spray around, but it just won't do. At some point, Hoax is to kind of regret what he is doing here because he really does like this girl, and he maybe thinks that what he is going on and punishing her with is probably too severe, or also just really wanting to go on and realize that like maybe this is wrong, and so Hoax goes on like, oh my god, I want this to stop. So Hoax goes on and he slams and crushes the spider, hoping that this will stop what is going on here. But instead, it kills Sophie, or it kills uh, Susie. And Hoax goes on and screams out to the air, no! Or the Darth Vader, no! No! Anyways, so we have Hoax that makes his way specifically to Susie's house to see if she's okay. Come to find out, yeah, she's dead on the ground, and there's spiders all around her, sadly. R.I.P. Susie, you are the good-looking one. But yeah, there's some women in this movie that actually were like, but Susie was delicious. That was a weird thing to say to a person, but still. Anyways, R.I.P. Susie. You probably should have really stayed a lot more later in the film, but regardless, things are to play out how they are to play out. So Hoax goes on and is to get rid of now just the spider net that he has, and he puts it in his closet. Aunt Lucy ends up stating to Hoax, "Hey, do you know what time it is?" And Hoax says, "Morphin time." Uh, and so Lucy ends up saying to Hoax, "It's like, well, why aren't you in bed? Don't you ever knock before entering?" Uh, and Lucy's like, "Wait, don't get testy with me, boy. Uh, do you know what's in my hand, boy?" Uh, Lucy comes to find that she has the telephone bill, and because Hoax had gone on to dial a bunch of 900 numbers that, of course, would be very expensive, that, of course, Lucy is to go on and put the hammer down on Hoax and get rid of his phone, and we even also have a point where Hoax is mentioning this like, well, hey, Spike, like he was the one that did it, not me. And Lucy's like, no, 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 like he has his own separate phone, and like don't go on and try to be sharing the blame with him. Like I know that you're doing this. So so yeah, so Lucy goes on, rips the phone out, and then leaves. And of course, because of how much that uh, that recently hoaxes to be so clinging onto that phone, he's like, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. Because eventually he'll go on and be like, another mark on my list for a person that I have to get rid of. So now we go on to have Palmer, who is making his way into Spike and Hoax's school. And he's there to go on and I believe to see Angela Martinez, who I believe is the principal of this school. It seems to be that is the traditional route of way in which that we're going to go about this here. So, oh yeah, so Spike's name is actually Leonard Johnson, but I guess he has the nickname as Spike. So yes, that is his name. I didn't realize that. that they had to point this out in that name, or that the movie. I mean, but anyways, Angela goes on and asks Palmer here if Spike is in some kind of trouble, and Palmer asks as well, he might be. Do you have 5 minutes? So Palmer ends up turning to the Mohawk kid, like, well, I could see why you spend so much time here, kid. Because these women are getting attractive in this film. So Palmer makes his way into the office, and so now Hoax and both Spike are in the or in the gymnasium, the basketball court, however you want to write this. So here's where we go on. We have both Hoax and we have Spike, who are actually to kind of be at odds with one another now. Here's where things start to transition here. So we have Hoax that admits to Spike what he had done to Susie, and that he had accidentally killed her. And Spike doesn't really understand what exactly Hoax is saying because he doesn't really believe Hoax would do something like that. Hoax says that it was an accident and he was only meant to scare her, but it went a little further than that. So Spike grabs Hoax, thrusts him into the locker room, and Spike says, hey, you better start talking and don't stop until you've told me everything. So Hoax says, I've killed her. I use my spider. And Hoax goes on and says that he had called the 900 number. Spike ends up looking at the 900 number, and I think he ends up ripping it up and throwing it onto the ground. Hoax says to Spike the reason why she killed Susie is because it was ruining Spike's reputation. Yeah, I'm sure that's why he killed her. Bullshit. So Hoax just kind of needs to justify it in his own mind why she deserved to die. But if anything, I don't think she really deserved it. So Hoax tells Spike that he had taken care of her because she was a Jezebel and this and that. So Spike throws Hoax onto the ground, and here's where Hoax tells Spike, it's like, oh, you think you're cool, you think you're cool, you think you're cool because you're bigger, because you're stronger than me. Oh, come on, hit me. Just you wait. It's gonna be different from now on. Someday soon, you're gonna be down here, and I'm gonna spit on you. And so we have Spike was like, yeah, when hell freezes over. Yeah, it's gonna get really cold, and it's getting really frozen here by the end of this film. And it's gonna really tell us that hell has frozen over now, hasn't it, Spike? Things are gonna be flipping some coins here, so we're gonna see all that play out. So Spike goes on and grabs Hoax one last time and tells him to get out of here. So Spike leaves, and we have Palmer that goes on to find the little card and then calls the number. Or no, wait. Back up a little bit. Palmer goes on, he calls a number, not the 900 number. He goes on to try to figure out the location of this 900 number so he can track down the location of where he's supposed to go, so he can find the operation that does this 900 number evil thing, so he can go on and find Mark Dark and find out that this is to not be from some actual person. It's just some machine that is doing all this. But still, it seems that by the end of the film, we find that Mark Dark is actually doing this whole operation. And it seems that he is to say that he has not gone on to have this machine be operational, but it seems that he's going on by the end of this film and having this thing fully operational, and he's using it by the end of the film. So he lied to Palmer. But anyways, so Palmer makes his way to this building and starts to find all of these uh, certain people that are going through these certain uh, phone calls of certain sorts. We have at one point where there's a guy who is to be on the phone, who is to be picking certain things for betting people, making suggestions for people who bet on sports and things. The next thing we see is a guy who's pretending to be Santa for some odd reason. Then we go on to the next person, and it's to be a woman who's going on of like, with desires most men can't satisfy. You're standing in front of me uh, in the confessional. Oh, Father Riley, I didn't know you could do that with an icon. And then we all of a sudden have Mark Dark that is looking at Palmer. It's like, can I help you? And so we have Palmer turn. It's like, yeah, I'm looking for Mark Dark. And Mark Dark says, follow me. So Palmer goes to Mark Dark's office. Mark Dark tells Palmer to sit down. So, Mr. Palmer, what exactly can I do for you today? Also, the guy that plays Mark Dark, amazing actor. Gone on to see him in, like, obviously, like Star Trek Voyager, but, like, I know he's in a number of other things. He's in a number of other projects. I think he was also in Gremlins too. One of the Gremlins. But yeah, but I think that's where I've kind of gone on to. I know he usually plays like the bad guy in a lot of stuff. Uh, but yeah, like I really feel that when he always goes on and does like certain performances, he does them like really well. Um, but I think honestly here, there's not enough for him to really go on and actually do here. So like, sadly, like I don't feel you get a really good gist of what the guy who plays Mark Dark actually is to uh, be a well-rounded performer in. But hey, like everybody kind of has to do their certain roles and just continue to work anyways. So Palmer goes on and asks Mark Dark about the whole horoscope thing, and Mark Dark is to explain how this whole thing was just a pet project, and then instead of having a real operator, instead he had gone on to have this more machine approach. Because he was also thinking about probably laying off all these people and hoping that this machine would go on and be um, his way of getting rid of people. So, plus also Mark Dark had gone on to live in some Radio Shack when he was in high school, uh, but it just didn't work out. So, because I guess he just didn't work there, he also lived there. I don't know, just sound weird. So, but if anything, Mark Dark tells Palmer that the machine that he had gone on to use has not been in operation for a long time. So Palmer's like, okay, this is kind of confusing. So why is it that all these people are calling this thing and getting these answers if the thing isn't still operational? So oddly, there's just something else at work here. So the next thing we see is that Hoax is dissecting a frog. You know that classic thing that you have to go on and do in school is dissecting a frog? Yeah, they showcase that in this movie. To, I guess, give us some more kind of gore thing going on. Plus, if you have a school thing, you have to dissect a frog at some point, so why not just show that in a film? So, we have at some point that Hoax is feeling a little green to the gills. He's feeling a little ill, so he turns to his teacher, Mr. Michael, and asks if he can go on and be excused. Also, it seems that Hoax is going on and kind of just clenching his hand consistently because we start to find that his fingertips are starting to turn black. And eventually we'll come to find that those fingertips will eventually turn into these black claws to reveal that Hoax is going to become this more demonic and more demon-like uh, a presence, which we kind of can see here a little bit with the black claws kind of protruding out of the gloves. Those are supposed to be gloves, because we kind of hide the fact that we hide the fact for the longest time that Hoax has like demon hands, is what we're trying to hide in this film. We kind of have him have gloves for some reason, just to be just at a smaller, reasonable budget in this film, which I don't have any problem with that. So Hoax makes his way to the bathroom, and guess who meets him there? Good old number 2. No, we have a guy named Jeff, and I believe a guy named Rags. Yeah, I believe Rags. Both Jeff and Rags make their way into the bathroom. Rags at first tries to go on. He like skateboards up the wall, and then Jeff takes the skateboard from him. The two of them go on and see, of course, Hoax, and it's like, all right, uh, like, don't we owe him one? They've almost kind of lost track of how much that they owe Hoax for something. So they go on. Rags goes on and grabs Hoax, and it seems that they're going to go on and hurt Hoax yet again. Hoax goes on and tells both Jeff and Rags, hey, I'm warning you. Hoax goes on and gets claws coming out of his hand, and he thrusts away from Rags, swipes Jeff, and Jeff gets a good old slashing upon his face, just viciously. Just the way it looks is just so beautiful about how it just really carved through his face. And I'm like, man, just Rags goes on and looks at Jeff and just be like, man, he really effed up your face, and he really cut you good. And so on and so forth, like in depth about how effed up this guy's face looks. So Jeff makes his way into the sink as Hoax then is to be looking at Rags and like, hey, you want a piece? You want a piece of my fingers? I'm turning into Sabretooth from Wolverine Origins, where I have bag lady claws. You want to with me? So we have Rags is like, okay, keep the F away from me. Like, you're crazy. He keeps calling him crazy. So Hoax goes on and is tempted to bash Rags here, but Rags ends up getting his skateboard in the way, and it breaks the skateboard. It's like, holy So we of course still have Rags call Hoax crazy as he backs away and leaves. We have Hoax that goes on and tells Jeff, hey, don't ever touch me again. Spread the word. So Spike makes his way into Hoax's closet to try to find the spider within the cage, hoping that maybe Hoax will go on and be wrong about what he had said, or maybe there could be evidence to not corroborate what Hoax had said there. So Hoax all of a sudden gets a little phone call from the man, saying, "What do you think that you would find, Spike?" Ha ha ha. So Spike goes on and looks out the window, and we have Hoax, who kind of puts down his blinds in his room. So the next thing we see is both Palmer and Angela. They're having a bit of dinner between the two, and they talk about the raining of fish. And we of course have Palmer that says to Angela that it's a warning from God. And we also have Palmer that goes on to mention how he went to the After Dark Enterprise, and it's out on Weber Road. So Palmer had gone on to mention to Angela about him going to this operating system. So the next thing we see is Lucy, Aunt Lucy, who of course is going on and feeding all of her cats, I think simultaneously, probably all of her pets simultaneously. And we have Hoax that makes his way into the kitchen to get his phone back. And we of course have Lucy that is telling Hoax not to go on and do so, even to the point where she follows Hoax while he goes on and makes his way back upstairs. And Lucy ends up telling Hoax that she gave him an order to not go on and use that phone again, and that she wants him to put the phone back. And Hoax turns to her, it's like, well, if you value your life, I suggest you leave me alone. And then he goes onto the phone and calls that 900 number so that way he can go on and get the next set of things that he needs to go on and do to get even more demonic. So Palmer makes his way back again to that operating system and back to that machine. I don't know why he goes back there again. Also, the door ends up saying "Dial Evil" on it, so I thought that was really cool. So we have Spike that has his phone up, and we have Hoax that has his phone up also. So the man on Hoax's line goes on and says to him, "Do you want the power now?" And Hoax is like, "Yes." And he says, "Are you ready?" Hoax is like, "Yes, I'm ready." And so all of a sudden, we have Hoax that is glowing like this, and we all of a sudden see that his eyes are now white and very, very like, looking like, monstrous looking. I think Palmer is going on and is to have made his way to the operation system, and I think he overheard everything that was going on within this phone call. And while Palmer makes his way through this operating system, he all of a sudden is to hear a phone ringing. So he answers it from this phone that's nearby. All of a sudden, we have Palmer, who's listening to the man, say, "Hello." "You're too late, Palmer." And then all of a sudden, Palmer ends up getting electrocuted through the phone. Palmer drops to the ground. And all of a sudden, the phone ends up detaching to where there's just the phone and none of the wire attached to it. And the phone goes on to say, "Hey, can I call you Marty?" Of course, Palmer's first name is Marty. And so, yeah, so even saying that there is something about this phone that it works with even having there not to actually be a cord with it. So Lucy is going on and watching some telly, and Angela goes on and finds Marty or Palmer and gets him out of the operating building and carries him out and asks him what the heck is going on or what the heck had gone on. So Palmer is telling Angela that they need to make their way to Hoax's place. They need to make their way there. So now we're back at all the bullies who are going on and they're playing strip poker now. We have Rags and we have, I believe, Jeff, who are down to their underwear. And Marcus and Airhead and Gang Girl, who it seems is going to be losing her clothes soon. We have Hoax, who interrupts the little poker gang. So during this poker game, we go on and and have some of the guys say, "Pinch me, Rags." Who is there? And so they say, "I must be dreaming. It's too good to be true." Uh, yeah, it's the slasher himself. That, of course, is to be Hoax coming in. Excuse me. So we now have Hoax is wearing sunglasses, obviously, to hide the fact that his eyes are a little bit more different. And so they end up making a joke about, hey, isn't it a little late for you to wearing sunglasses? Or is it the full moon out? So both Jeff and Rags grab Hoax and drag him outside, thinking that these guys are going to go on and take care of him. Come to find out, they're going to disappear and they're going to be losing a little bit of a body part with them. So we now have a bit of a distraction here as we are to go on to realize that the girl of the gang, she had lost this poker bet and how she's going to have to go on and strip now in front of the guys. So here is where Spike goes on and he makes his way to the church for reasons I don't quite understand. And this girl strips down, and we enjoy this show, I guess. Spike goes on and is to have this thing on his bike and then drives off. And again, I don't know why that scene is there. Did the Reverend have a gun? I don't know. Maybe Spike put his bullets in holy water. I don't know. I don't know exactly what was going on there. But either way, don't know. So Hoax goes on and makes his way back in to speak with Marcus and speak with Airhead and the girl who's in this gang also who has no name. So Hoax makes his way to realize, hey man, can I finally enter this game? All I have is a pair of hearts. He puts out his hand and he legitimately has two heart organs. And that ends up freaking the guys out. So Marcus ends up telling Hoax, man, you effing killed them, man. You killed them. And Hoax kind whips out his butter knife, his palisson, his knife that you kind of have to go on and do these like weird kind of things with to like, yeah. So if you guys don't know exactly what I'm talking about, you would probably have to see the Nicolas Cage movie Kick Ass, because at some point they talk about the thing and then Hit Girl has these Belisons and these whatever these certain knives that you have to go on and you have to do these like weird goofy little things to get the knife to come out. But anyways, so Marcus goes on to say, hey, like, let's see if you can effing kill me, man. Give it your best shot. Hoax goes on, and with one thrust, Hoax is blasting Marcus onto the wall, and he freaking smashes into the wall and falls over. All of a sudden, we have this one chemical product that falls over and starts spilling onto the ground into all of this film and popcorn. We have Hoax that goes on and takes this cigarette as he is to finally smoke one and thrusted this thing into the film and into the popcorn and lets it burn. We have Hoax. This is oh my. So Marcus is down on the ground as this place is starting to burn. Marcus tries to make his way back to his blade, and Hoax is like, "Oh no, no, no!" And so Hoax goes on and grabs the blade away from Marcus's hand. As we also come to find that Hoax's foot is starting to break free from his shoe, and we start to see the toenails are also to start to have these sharp kind of nails coming out of it, just like, of course, Hoax's hands. So we would go on to have Hoax who chops off Marcus's arm. It says, now that's a dead man's hand. Because, of course, uh, we would have Marcus that goes on to, while he's playing, he does this whole dead man hand thing. And then Hoax is to go on and be like, all right, well, like, I'm going to show you a real one. So Marcus is now trying to hide his now gone arm, even to the point where he goes in the bathroom and is putting paper towel all over his actual, like, we can see his hand, but logically, we're just like, hey man, like, this movie only has so much budget and whatever. But hey, that was actually a very smart way to kind of hide the arm, the hand thing. That was actually really smart for this movie to do that. So Marcus goes on and be like, please don't, please get away. So we now have Airhead and we have the girl of the gang that has just made their way to the rooftop of this place. And they're kind of just like, oh, where is he? And it's kind of funny. Hoax just kind of comes from behind them. It's like, well, who are we waiting for? I'm like, oh, shit. So what happens is Hoax grabs Airhead, thrusts him into the pitchfork that's on the sign of the Diablo, and so Airhead dies that way. He like choke slams him, he like thrusts him, and stabs into the pitchfork, and sparks start to fly. Then I don't think Hoax goes on and does anything with the girl. I think he just lets her live. Because at some point we just see the girl that's crying, and then Hoax just kind of leaves and just goes after Marcus. Clearly, I think because Hoax, like, this girl didn't do anything to him, so I think he probably just let her live. So Hoax pokes back into the poker game room to try to find if Marcus is there, and he's not. And he's like, "Where have you gone?" So Hoax makes his way into the bathroom to break his way through all the bathroom stalls as Marcus is hiding in the bathroom stall, clutching his bloodied hand. So, of course, Hoax does go on and find Marcus in the last bathroom stall and says, oh, bye bye, as he's waving his own hand to him. And then is to, of course, go on and kill Marcus. The next thing we see is Hoax making his way back to his home, and eventually is to be uh, having Lucy start to talk to him, asking where he's been. Boy, I said, where have you been? Come on now, answer me. Don't turn your head to me. I'm gonna go upstairs and I'm gonna get my strap. I'm gonna give it to you. You're never too old to get it. I told you 100 times. If I told you 20, boy, look at me when I'm talking to you. Now I owe you one. Get off that sofa, boy. Up, 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 up. So here's where Hoax goes on and finally takes his mother out. She falls onto the couch. The parrot goes on and says, not on the couch, not on the couch. And we have Hoax that tells the bird, well, that's what exactly the plastic's for, a-hole. Angela and Palmer make their way to Hoax's home. And what Hoax ends up doing is going around the back and starts to crawl his way through this shrubbery. And by the time he goes on and makes his way all the way up through the shrubbery, going on and says, I should have been an insurance salesman. Oh, it was the family business. And by the time that Palmer makes the way to the top, he then finds this window, and Hoax is there waiting for him. Look at me. And scares the crap out of Palmer. Palmer falls, and Angela is now to go on and just be waiting for her time to make her way into the house. Angela goes on, of course, the attractive woman that they make her out to be now that she's lost her glasses and her hair up in a bun. Angela goes on and makes her way through the house as she's going on and speaking with Hoax, where he's saying that my mother is sick. please help, and all kinds of things just to get this girl further into the house. Eventually, Angela will go on and find Lucy into the bed, and she will be uh, eaten away by these cats, all bloody and a mess. Angela makes her way back out of that room and finds Hoax there, and his face to now be more demonic and more um, to a point of him having very like long ears, and is to really be so much more drastically different than the Hoax that we are to know through a good chunk of this film uh, of his facial features. So we have Hoax that is saying to Angela, "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" So Angela is to try to get away from Hoax, but of course Hoax is to go on and be thrusting away Angela's blazer. She has this seemingly very, uh, very kind of almost uh, intimate, somewhat bit of clothing underneath, kind of showing a little bit more of a nighty kind of approach of a shirt here. But anyways, we have Angela that I believe ends up falling down the stairs, but it seems that she is to be okay because she will continue to just uh, fight alongside Palmer as she mostly tries to escape with him, as mostly Spike does a lot of the heavy lifting by the end of this film. So here is where we start to even more see that this house is to be much more in a hell frozen over look to it, or is to be in a very much more frozen like atmosphere, to where we're seeing icicles and all those things of that nature. So Spike miraculously goes on to find Palmer, and the two of them make their way back into the house. And Palmer ends up telling Spike, "Hey, he's got Angela. Let's get in there." So we have another damsel in distress thing going on here. Hoax goes on and has Angela just kind of dangling off to the side here. And as Palmer and Spike enter, we have, of course, Hoax like, "Well, just in time for my little party." So Spike comes in and he has a gun. Ooh, wow, what a miraculous thing a gun is gonna do for this whole thing here. So Hoax goes on and tells Spike, "Hey, welcome to my house, cousin." Uh, we of course have Spike who does the cliche like, "Don't you think it's time to end this hoax?" Uh, also, I was thinking the whole entire time we could kind of take everything that anyone is going on and saying to Hoax, and it just sound like a weird joke of some kind. Uh, uh, when both Palmer and Angela try to leave, there is at one point where Hoax says leaving so soon, and then all of a sudden this like chandelier falls and breaks the bridge that they're running across of. And so Hoax goes on to tell his cousin that you don't end in Armageddon, that this is what Hoax is planning on, to destroy the world. As well as also we start to see some cracks that are happening within this atmosphere that are to basically tell us that there's fire and brimstone that are coming from those cracks, and we'll probably all have it be that hell is probably coming back to the surface and is all going to go on and and rival humanity. So we have Spike that goes on and tells his cousin Armageddon this as he fires the gun, kind of having a blast of now skin kind of coming off of Hoax's face. Uh, Hoax goes on and tells Spikes, "Hey, Mama told us never to play with guns." And so Hoax goes on and takes his cousin out. Isn't that ironic, cousin? You down there, me up here. Guess what, cousin? Hell finally froze over after all. And Hoax goes on and spits on Spike like he had told him he was going to. So here's where Angela and both Palmer decide to take this little pipeline that Hoax had made to deliver those notes to Spike, those little messages. And so they're oddly deciding to just climb from that to get to the guest room house. So we have Hoax that notices that. It's like, hang on, and he's rocking it back and forth. I'm like, this is kind of getting boring of the film. This is not exactly the most exciting part of the movie. Uh, and then all of a sudden we see the cracking of the ground, and we see the flames coming up, and so now these people have to kind of do a floor of lava kind of thing to make their way to the other guest house so they can survive. So Hoax makes his way back to much more so focus on Spike, as really there's nothing that he's going to be able to do uh, to do anything with Angela or Palmer at this point. He has to focus back on the guy that's within this house that he's uh, nearest by. So Hoax goes on and uh, chokes Spike here, and the more focused thing that Spike is to try to get Hoax back to his normal self, because at this point, the demon of Hoax has kind of been taking over. So we have a Spike that goes on to tell Hoax about the whole road trip, and it's like, hey, remember the road trip that we are gonna do with our bikes, uh, and this and that. Yeah, a couple of babes, just like you wanted, and so Spike is like, yeah, Hoax, like remember that, like remember what we are gonna do, and so that starts to kind of shake Hoax like kind of out of things, and Spike even tells him whatever he needs to hear. It's like, hey, you can ride my bike. Don't you know how you like my bike? And Hoax is all of a sudden like in the open road. It's like, yeah, to the Grand Canyon or wherever you want to go. The Painted Desert, the Mississippi, New Orleans. So Hoax goes on and tells Spike, hey, take me with you. Uh, and then all of a sudden the demon comes back. It's like, he's mine now. He's not going anywhere. So as both Hug and Spike embrace, Spike goes on and is to, while hugging Hoax, runs to the window, throws Hoax out of the window, and Hoax goes falling down to the big, huge gap that is to, of course, be a fire and brimstone and is to seemingly disappear forever. And that is to seemingly do away with Armageddon, and that is to seemingly give us the end of this film. And we have both Palmer and Angela who are at the guest house and they're just chilling, like, oh, hey, man, we survived. Great. Look at us. So the next thing we cue back to is we go back to uh, Dark Mark or Mark Dark, who I think a lot of people will just say that he's like the devil of this story, but then again, also, we can't exactly say that that is to be true, but the way that just his hair looks and everything, like, we just draw those conclusions. But anything, the last thing we see is that Dark Mark or Mark Dark is to have gone on and spilt a little bit of food juice on this one picture, but he's going on to be sitting next to this operating thing. Of course, the thing that he supposedly wasn't working on, or he had just kind of let it sit and let it die. He's having it fully be operational, and someone else is calling him from Memphis or some other place. He's like, "Oh yeah, love me some Memphis." And so the next thing we see is that uh, Mark is putting the picture of Hoax in front of him, and I'm sure we'll have something special in store for you. It's like, wait a minute, like the guy is supposedly dead. He's probably not going to be in the sequel, so what exactly does that mean? I throw my hands up and just like, So that is the end of the story. I'm gonna get the heck out of here so I can kind of upload this. So goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. There's nothing else I think I have to say, so I'm gonna get out of here anyways. So I can also probably try as best as possible to get this under 2 hours. I'm trying as best as possible now to try to make these videos a little bit shorter to try to get them under at least 2 hours. So I don't have to go on and end up doing like these videos that I think no one will see that are like 3 or 4 hours long. But then again, also with a project like this, it may just be very much a project that people may have any or no interest whatsoever in them. So it's just kind of whatever. I'm just going to do this because I liked this film. I liked how this all played out, and regardless of how people are to not care about these certain projects, I will eventually go on and find a better one. I hope somewhere down the road. So with that said, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.